I've just travelled up one of our loveliest motorways to surprise a man who is literally a man of many talents. He's also one of the most outspoken and controversial characters on television. Everyone has an opinion on him.
Good luck, Michael. I hope you get a word in tonight.
There are those amongst us that think this man speaks a load of rubbish.
Some members of my profession have been known to call this man a prat.
Here at Walsall Football Club, he's addressing a meeting of soccer's top brass, the club chairman who run the game. Let's hope you'll appreciate my few well-chosen words.
Which is not on the agenda, which I wish to deal with, and for this purpose I would ask Mr. Jimmy Hill to stand up for a moment. Will you stand?
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, forgive the interruption, but I have come here to show the Red Book to one of your colleagues and to insist that he comes off at once, because I can't reach you very well. But Fulham chairman and man for all seasons, Jimmy Hill, this is your life.
I had thought I was immune from this.
No one is immune, Jim. Why would you think you were immune, Jim?
When you've had too many wives, it gets difficult.
We'll discuss this later, shall we? Yes. I'll take the book under my arm and you under the other one, and we're going back to the BBC studios to tell that and many other parts of your extraordinary story. Well, Jimmy, as you've seen, here's the lineup. Your wife, Bryony, and your sons, Duncan and Graham, and friends and colleagues from the world of television, including Steve Ryder, Trevor Brooking, Reg Gutteridge, and Dickie Davis. But we've had to spread our net very far and wide to bring the Hill family together tonight.
We've just thrown in from Mexico, Dad.
And I've just got off a plane from Houston, and I've brought Chelsea with me.
Not Chelsea, the football team, but your 6-year-old granddaughter, along with your daughters Alison and Joanna, and your son Jamie.
There we are. I can't do that good. You're a lovely one.
Very well. Good lad. Alison, we have to ask, why did you choose the name Chelsea?
Well, Fulham didn't have quite the same ring, plus they lose a lot.
Sorry I asked that. To avoid any confusion, Jimmy, Duncan, Graham and Alison are from your first marriage to Gloria, who is with us tonight, and Joanna and Jamie are from your marriage to your late second wife, Heather. Now, your other family, of course, is here at the BBC, where you've been an influential voice for many years.
I love working with you, Jim, but I'm not madly keen on walking around football pitches with you.
Maybe, just maybe, Jimmy, I deserve the stick you used to give me.
Your Match of the Day colleagues, Des Lynam and Alan Hansen.
I've never seen you so well
The reason, Michael, we never want to walk around a pitch with him when we're covering a live game going to our position is that when he walks around, he gets so much reaction. Not all of it favourable, is it, Jim?
No.
And we sort of skulk off in front of him or behind him, don't we? And the reason he gets such reaction is that Jimmy's always told the truth about football, and not everybody wants to hear it. And I think if football had been sensible down the years, they would have made you the commissioner of the game in this country, and all would have been well.
I thought he was the commissioner.
Well, he thinks he is.
Has criticised you, Alan, once or twice in his time.
And he still has criticised me when we do the live games, but I wasn't too enamoured with Jimmy when I played for Liverpool, but it's an absolute certainty that in the years to come, I mean, I don't know what his future plans are, but if he's not running football, then you'll be the first 100-year-old football pundit.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Alan, very much. Lovely.
Well, James William Thomas Hill, this is your life, and you were born in Pentney Road in Balham on July the 22nd, 1928. Your mother was Alice, your father was William, a milkman who eventually became supervisor of a chain of bakery shops. Your sporting talent is prominent from an early age, and so is the chin that becomes your trademark. Coached by your late stepsister Irene, who played cricket for the England women's team, you win a coveted Jack Hobbs bat. And at the age of 10, you're captain of the Henry Cavendish School football and cricket teams. You win a scholarship to the Henry Thornton School at Clapham, and when it's transferred to Chichester at the outbreak of war, you soon decide that you prefer to live in London, despite the Blitz, so you attend the South West London Emergency Secondary School by day and join your family in an Anderson air raid shelter by night. Now, during the war, you start a long association with the Boys Brigade, and you turn up at the 88 London Company 6 nights a week.
Now that, Jimmy, is when you started to blow your own trumpet.
Leading a reunion of 88 Company, 50 years on, is Jack Eisted with Ron Bird, Dave Shearer, John Hutchinson and Bill Shoebridge.
Isn't that marvellous?
Now, Jack, is that what I think it is?
It's the cornet, yes.
What are you going to do with that?
I'm hoping you're going to knock out a tune for us.
Give us a blast, Jim.
Shall I blow it? I mean, you won't go.
Company dismissed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
That was wonderful. Now, when you're 16, you leave school and you work as a clerk for a couple of years before getting the inevitable call to national service. You join the Royal Army Service Corps at Cirencester, where it is your football that gets you noticed.
Your first transfer, Jimmy, was not at your request.
A close friend since your army days, former Charlton and England footballer and Kent wicket-keeper Derek Ufton. So, Derek, you did a bit of headhunting, didn't you?
I did. Cirencester. Remember the days we used to play together in the mud? And I got posted to Buller Barracks at Aldershot, and you went down the road to Blackdown. I played cricket for the summer. The end of the summer, one of the officers said, "Do you play football as well?" And stupidly I said, "Well, yes." The next day I was on orders to go to Ellis Barracks at Farnborough. Got in this team, quite a good side, but the Major Mallon, called a meeting together and said, "We're just one player short, an inside right, a striker. Does anybody know one?" So I put my hand up and said, "Yes, sir, I know a striker, Jimmy Hill, he's down at Blackdown." 3 days later, you came walking up the road, rifle one shoulder, kit back on the other. I ran to meet you, and you said, "Wait till I find out who did this." Everything was organised at Blackdown. I'm a corporal, I'm in the pay office, playing cricket, playing tennis, playing soccer. The girls are marvellous. What more can I want? And here I am walking up the road. Wait till I found out who it is. So I didn't tell you for a couple of years. I'm not telling you that.
But it meant we continued our friendship, which has gone on all that long time.
Marvellous.
And I hope it goes on for many years.
Absolutely marvellous today, Jim. Couldn't do better.
Thank you, Derek, very much.
Thanks a lot.
In 1949, after 6 months as an amateur with Reading, you start your professional career with Brentford. You play in the half-back line alongside future England manager Ron Greenwood. Well, in 1952, you're transferred to the club that has remained closest to your heart, Fulham. And you revert to your favourite position of inside right, and you partner the man you've described as England's finest ever passer of the ball.
And thanks to you, Jimmy, I was properly paid for the job.
Former Fulham and England captain, Johnny Haynes.
Wow.
Johnny, tell us what it was.
A little more applause for this gentleman. He is fantastic, I tell you.
Johnny, what did Jimmy do for you?
Well, he did a great deal for me, as well as sticking in a lot of goals from my passes, which I was always grateful for. But money-wise, he was obviously chairman of the Players' Union and got the maximum wage lifted. But he was entitled to get me a pay rise because he used to take most of my 20 quid on the golf course and the tennis court and the bridge table. And there wasn't anything left by the time he finished with me. So I needed a rise desperately, Michael.
And what did he get your rise to?
£100. Which I was very pleased about. Thank you very much, Jim. And of course, a lot of other people like to say thank you too. I think the ones that are getting 2,000 and 3,000 a week now, I'm sure they're delighted.
10,000.
10,000? Oh, I didn't know about that.
Anyway, Johnny, thank you very much.
Great.
We will have a good night. With Fulham in 277 league matches, you scored 41 goals, 5 of them in one match. This leads to you being tagged the Bearded Wonder. Now, marking you during that match at Doncaster is a man who since then has managed to see the funny side of things, comedian Charlie Williams.
Hello, Jimmy, me old flower. Do I remember March the 16th, 1958? Fulham 6, Doncaster Rovers 1. And who scored 5 goals that day? None other than Jimmy Hill. Anyway, we're not going to grumble, it's all done with now, lad. But they had a great game that day, and congratulations to thee. Have a good night, all the very best. Keep your chin up, son.
Thank you, Charlie. Now, in 1956, you become chairman of the Professional Footballers Association, working in harness with Union Secretary Cliff Lloyd. You fight a 5-year battle to revolutionise the game by getting the notorious £20 maximum wage removed. A modern footballing hero who appreciates all you did for today's players is your newest teammate at the BBC, former England captain Gary Lineker.
Congratulations, Jimmy. This is certainly a tribute that you more than deserve. You've been responsible for so many of the worthwhile changes in the game. Many of the present-day players will be unaware that it was you who was instrumental in abolishing the maximum wage. You've always fought for the good things in football, whether you were a player, manager, administrator or broadcaster. You've never been afraid to speak up against the wrongs, and for that the game will always be grateful. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Well, Jimmy, at the end of the 1960-61 season, you retire as a player and move into management. You're hooked by the coaching gospel spread by the then England manager Walter Winterbottom, and you introduce your ideas with great success to Coventry City. Well, Jimmy, you steer Coventry from the 3rd division to the 1st.
You reach for and you touch the sky with the Sky Blues.
As coach, he guided Coventry to the FA Cup in 1987, John Sillett, and your captain, who later became managing director, George Curtis. John, as a player, you were one of the first to sign for Jimmy, weren't you?
One of his first signings, yeah. It must have been very, very successful to have had you come talking to me in London. And a great fee you paid for me. What was it, 3,000?
2,600.
Sorry, I've overpriced myself.
Mind you, were worth every penny, wasn't he, George?
Great motivator, great manager to play for. The best playing days of my career, sir, I owe to you. And a lot of the ideas I had to win the cup for Coventry came from you, my man. God bless you, sir. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, John.
Well done.
You're going to do a bit, George. I'm going here, he's always rude.
You were Jimmy's captain, George.
I was Jimmy's captain. He took all my lines from me, as usual.
I bet you'll find one, George.
All I can say, the first I met you, when you come in through those gates in the battered old Ilman minx, you know, I thought, well, we've got a new manager, he'll have a jag or something, but no, it's a battered Ilman minx. The JH, on behalf of all the lads that we see regular, we had a wonderful time under you, and everything else. We had a super time, you were a super manager, super motivator. But the only thing that we couldn't get on with on this Friday morning, when we used to play five-a-side, we had to let you score, and we had to let be on the winning side, or it would have been out there all bloody day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
see them. Yeah. They look more like prop forwards, actually, don't they?
Good, strong lads, weren't they, in those days? Wouldn't be allowed to play now.
Well, Jimmy, you caused shockwaves in 1967 by quitting as manager just after guiding Coventry to the First Division for the first time in their history. Now, why didn't you stay?
Well, the strange thing is, I left because I wanted to stay. The truth of the matter is, I asked for a 10-year contract. And for all sorts of reasons, probably wise ones in some ways, I wasn't offered one. So I went to nothing. I was writing for the News of the World, and 3 weeks later, something might be said in the book, a certain gentleman came along and said, would you go for an interview with a man called Michael Peacock? But that's the simple truth of leaving Coventry City.
Well, somebody who joined the London Weekend Television sports team at the same time as you after that recalls how you laid the foundations to your television career. Former ITV head of sport, John Bromley.
My dear James, I just wanted to thank you for all the fun we had in those golden days at LWT. You were marvellous. An inspiring leader, a superb politician when it came to all those network shenanigans, and not a bad performer. Now, you should have stuck to that, mate. You could have made a career out of that. Have a great night. God bless you.
Thank you, Bromley. In 1973, you make waves by crossing channels from ITV to the BBC. Now, during all this time, there was, of course, more to your life than football, union work and broadcasting. Now, Bryony, when you became Mrs. Hill in 1991, you found that football still took priority.
I did indeed. We went on a very brief honeymoon to Suffolk for 3 days. And after a nice supper, we went upstairs to our room. Jimmy turns on the television. Who do we see? Mr. Lynham and Sports Night. That was my wedding night.
That's a long match.
But there was a double edge to it why we chose Suffolk, or Jimmy chose Suffolk, because Fulham happened to be playing Cambridge United on the Saturday. Then the honeymoon ended.
Do you remember who won?
Cambridge.
Yeah.
Cambridge.
3 minutes from the end with a miss-hit shot on a muddy pitch which trickled in by one post.
And that's all you remember about your honeymoon?
No, Fulham had played really well.
Now, Duncan, you are the eldest of Jimmy's children. What is it like trying to keep pace with him?
You can't keep pace with him, basically. It's very hard to have a famous father who, unfortunately, thinks he's always right and is often proved to be right later on. What has always amazed me about him, and I'm sure a few of you over there have been amazed, is his capacity to be late all the time. He can be 20 minutes late, half an hour late, you can sit there, and then he turns up full of enthusiasm. And I think it's a credit to him that he's achieved so much since he's always so late.
Well, that's different, isn't it? Now, your other interests include tennis, that is you giving young Bjorn Borg a workout, golf, and, favourite of all, horse riding. On one occasion in the show-jumping arena at Olympia, your horse nearly showed you the red card.
And Jimmy really is riding down the fences if he's up at the Heathrow. Let's turn that round. Beard jutting out. Oh, my word. Get up, Jimmy. Hold on. Well recovered.
Nasty moment there, Jim.
Oh, damn it. Thought I'd gone.
Well, you wouldn't have guessed it from that clip, but you were taught by the best teacher available.
Do you remember turning the riding game into a pyjama game, Jimmy?
Show-jumping master Ted Edgar with his wife, Liz. Ted, what sort of pupil was Jimmy?
I met him in a pub one night, and he said he'd like to, to learn to ride. So I said, well, that's OK, be there in the morning, I'll teach you. So we gave him 2.5 hours. He had sore heels, sore knees, and a sore arse. I said to Liz, we shan't see him no more. He came back the next morning, he said, I've done it, he said, it's right. I said, what's that, Jim? He said, I've got my pyjamas under my trousers.
Liz, you remember this well?
Yes, I do, Jim. You were a quick learner, though. And do you remember that day we had when the Warwick show and he couldn't come? And I was told, look after Jim. And I spent the whole day trying to keep up with you. Don't you remember that one?
Yeah.
And then at the time when we were out riding across the fields, and you always believed if he told you something, it was possible. Yeah, yeah. And he said, jump that hedge, Jim. And the horse said no. And you ended up sitting in that blackthorn hedge, you remember that? And then we all had to help you to remove the thorns from where you couldn't reach them. You remember? You couldn't see them.
That's how you know who your friends are, Liz. Thank you very much.
I'll see you. Yeah, lovely.
Well, away from all your business pursuits, you pour yourself into charity fundraising for Gold Diggers and Sparks, of which you are now president. And this year you were rewarded with the OBE. Now, years ago, during the 1970 World Cup, you were, of course, an outspoken member of an ITV panel that brought flair and kipper ties to the screen.
But as a team to watching that with a complete...
But why are we taking to do better? Why are we taking to do better in Europe? Because we play against peasant teams who play primitive ways. Germany and Italy play with a bloody sweeper.
Malcolm, we've had a lot of letters. You'll get the yellow card in a minute from Romanians and Hungarians.
No, I'll tell you what, Jim, I couldn't care less tonight.
No, but you must care less about peasants. You don't really mean that.
And here, 25 years later, two of the men who brought that panel to life, ITV voice of football Brian Moore and former Irish international Derek Dougan.
Yeah, thanks, Derek.
You'd be the best player here tonight.
Brian, as chairman, you had to control these characters.
He was never a problem controlling, actually. I mean, what you may not know, Jimmy knows, I owe you so much because you brought me into television in the first place, and on the strength of that, I always used to feed him the juicy questions. These were the fellas like Derek Dougan and Malcolm and Pat Craren. They were the ones that took an awful lot of control. But we had so much fun in those days, Jimmy, with our panels, didn't we? We brought fun with authority as well. And the public really responded to that. And I watched panels over the years, and they're terrific panels since then, and a lot of good analysis. But I don't think anything really has surpassed those days of 1970. And you, of course, were at the centre of it all. And hearing what people have been saying tonight, I honestly feel if there were a dozen or so Jimmy Hills in this country, football wouldn't be in quite the dodgy state it's in at the moment. God bless you, Jim. No.
So, Derek, back to those debates. They did get a bit heated.
They did, and the nice thing about it really was it was never planned. I mean, we literally got to a point where Jimmy and Brian and Bromers actually trusted us. And we just arrived like 5 or 10 minutes, literally, before a program. We never did any rehearsals, just maybe for sound and voice. But the nice thing about it, really, Malcolm was in great form, and it was probably one of the best months I've ever had in my life. He's not aware of it, but he did ask me in January. I had the longest suspension slightly before Eric Cantona, 10 weeks I came back, I played against Everton, I broke my face in 4 places. He came to me and seen the state of me. He said, I had an offer from the BBC. Look into your face. He said, you're better off staying with the BBC. But I came there, and honestly, I had the best month of my life, and thanks for inviting me on that programme.
And thank you very much.
Smashing. Thanks for coming tonight.
Laurie McMenemy, you worked with Jimmy after he switched to the BBC.
We had many good times, and Bobby and I used to walk around Wembley to the back in the wind and the rain, and we'd go up, and Jimmy was always there, the supreme professional, and we often wondered how he looks so smart and well prepared. And then one day, just before kick-off, Bobby nudged me, and I looked along, and he was opening this big briefcase, which we thought was full of his preparation notes, and he just quietly slid out his private compact, flicked it open, and there was his mirror and he flicked his hair, and Bobby and me were all windswept, and then the coup de grace was when he cut his little brush out and the mascara and touched together. But I've got to say, Jimmy, that I agree with all the tributes paid tonight. You've done everything in the game, and in addition, you're a very warm and a very loyal man and a good man. And I think that long ago you could have done without television, but I think if you went now, television would miss you greatly.
Thank you, Laurie. Well, these much maligned whiskers went in the name of charity in 1983, and you raised £3,000. Well, your chin gets a lot of fresh air these days on the golf course, and one of your regular partners is on a golfing holiday in Portugal, and he sends this message. Jimmy Tarbuck.
Hiya, Jim. You'll recognise this. It's the 18th hole at San Lorenzo, and all that water, you were in it every day of the week we played here. Mind you, being Jimmy Hill, You walked across the water twice. What do I know about you? Well, the first time I really saw you was riding a white horse round Coventry City's football pitch. Then you put the horse on in the second half, it scored 2 goals, and you tried to sign it. I know the other side of Jimmy Hill, that you do so much for charity, you do it unannounced, but that's the type of man you are. I'm so pleased that you received an OBE this year, because I tell you, pal, you really deserve it. Mind you, it'll be the first time an OBE has been hung on a chin. My love to your child bride. Have a lovely night. Good night and God bless you.
Talking of shared interests, a man who now runs the national football team has enjoyed engaging you in verbal punch-ups.
But I love you really, Jimmy. Well, sometimes.
England football coach Terry Venables. Terry, last word to you, I think.
Yeah, well, I always notice after our BBC programmes, Jim and I used to have a little discussions, of course, and the next day the taxi drivers used to say to me, "Tell, you hate that Jimmy Hill, don't you?" You know, and I used to say, "No, not really." And they used to get so disappointed, and in the end I say, "Yeah, all right, I do." Yeah. We've had our problems, but many years, I don't know if you remember it, but we was in Belfast with the ex-English team against the ex-Irish team, and afterwards there was a function, and it was the wine was flowing, and we had some good fun in there. And this woman was giving a song, and she was getting people to join in. So she called Johnny Haynes, myself, and Jim up to join in, and she said, "I want you to join in Old MacDonald at a farm. You know, you'll be the animals." So going up to John and said, "You'll be a cow," and John went, "Yes." He said, "Jim, you've got to be a duck," and you can see he was concerned. He wasn't happy with that. He said to me, "You be the dog." Now, being the pro he is, Jim come straight over to me and he said, "You be the duck," he said, "because I do a great dog." No, really, they said, "I'd like to say something nice about you, but I can't." But there's been so many lovely things said, and sure enough, all our disagreements, I must say I've got a great respect for you. I think you know that. We all know what you've done in the game, and it's already been mentioned, the word, but out of everything, when we're having our rows or we're having our better times, I think the word warmth comes to me with Jim. I think that warmth always comes through, and I think that's very special. Recently, we had a couple of meetings at the FA, very recently, and I must say the trouble is he's getting better. He's getting stronger and getting better. I'm getting worried. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Jimmy Hill, this is your life.